build and consult for a dozen startups, run a marathon, get a sailing license, relocate to 2 countries, and not get mad along the way. Hi friends, this is Discover with Jane. Thank you for being on my channel. You guys often ask me, how do I maintain that energy? So this is not a video about me as a marketing manager. It's more about me as a person, how my life operates from the inside. And if you are interested about that, let's go. Over the last 3 years, I have been in a lot of career turbulence, transitioning first from Big 3 consulting to tech, strategy and product management, then transitioning from corporates to startups and to startup consulting and freelancing, launching my own agency, relocating to Turkey and then to Montenegro from Russia. So that's been a lot of changes. The first two principles my energy is based on are pretty simple. They are sleep and exercise. And I was in doubt which one to put first, but let me put first the one that has started first. And it's specifically running. I've started running about the time when I started my career in tech. In the same office at the VK group, where I took a position of strategy manager and then transitioned to product management and startup building laboratory. The guy next to me happens to be a triathlon fan. And we started talking about sports, about hobbies. And he said, "Oh wow, you run casually. You are a sporty girl. You should be able to run a half marathon easily. You know what? Here is a training group, here is a chat, here is this training facility that's next to the office. You should probably get there." I have been running casually since I think the end of college, which was in 2012, so it's been 12 years. But my casual running was really casual. So I would pop outside on a Saturday, sometimes on a weekday, run maybe 5 kilometers, maybe even less than that. I was even joking that I would invent a sport where you have to run and take nice pictures, because I took pictures of cats and flowers and birdies on my runs. But it has been all changed with the system, where I began going to regular practices with a coach, with a team. I ended up in VK corporate running team, going to trainings a couple times per week with the team, getting coached on my running technique. And it was in this way approximately for a year, I think 2021 to 2022. We had a fabulous training system where you gradually build your technique, then you take interval runs, and this is how you gradually become faster, and also you gradually pick up larger volumes of runs and prepare for 10K and half marathon and marathon. Long story short, I ran both my first half marathon and my first marathon last year, 2023. I finished my first half marathon in under 2 hours. I finished my first marathon in Istanbul, not under 4 hours as I wished, but in 4 hours and 8 minutes and 10 seconds. I am training for my second marathon now. So my first energy booster is running. I run approximately 30-40 kilometers per week on average. So sometimes it drops to as low as 20 for summer. And when I prepare for big runs, it can increase to 50 or 60, with 60 being absolute maximum for me. In comparison, professional athletes do 200-kilometer weeks, sometimes more. So I'm not doing anything crazy. What kind of a system is running? First, running is raw endurance. It makes you more resilient physically as well as mentally, because you do not really endure pain as some people say. I would say you endure consistent hardship when you run long distance. It's a slight discomfort that's building up. And the skill of being able to endure this is why it's such an important mental building block, the running. So, running is raw endurance in both mental aspect and cardiovascular aspect. Then it's discipline. And third, it takes you months and years to see the progress. At first, you're building that initial discipline, and it seems like you don't see much progress. At this point, it's really important to run with a coach and with a team, because they would help you sustain that motivation. Because, as I've mentioned, running is a gradual system. It takes you months and years to achieve those goals. Your body becomes wired in a different way. Like, you're physically growing your heart volume, new blood vessels, and new muscle tissue. And growing different physical systems in your body takes time. And in that same time, you are building this endurance type of mindset as well. When you see that kind of progress in 6 months, becoming more fit, more disciplined person, there is really no turning back. The second system that followed my running is the sleep schedule. I've been chasing the goal of early wake-ups for years, but the system always broke down because I started going to bed early, waking up early, and then something happened. Maybe I just wanted to watch a movie. Maybe I wanted to hang out with friends. Maybe it was dance practice. Maybe it was a party. Maybe I was working late. And this is how I ended up going to bed late. And this is how I ended up waking up not really fresh. And this was how I became to sleep in on weekends. And my system of early wake-ups never lasted, maybe besides 1 or 2 weeks. And I got out of this circle of late wake-ups thanks to running. My running system as a solo runner really started building when I relocated to Turkey. It was a really spontaneous relocation because of the war between Russia and Ukraine that made a lot of people, including me, fear for their freedom, for their finances, for their perspectives. This is how I ended up in Turkey. And this was the time when I just started to just go outside on the waterfront and run almost every day for maybe 5 kilometers without any speed works, nothing, just to build the structure of my day. And it was really the first system that built me as a freelancer, as a business person, as a person relying heavily on myself. That's why running is my first system. And my second system, which is sleep, relies heavily on my first system, because when I ended up in Turkey, especially in Antalya, which is a really hot place in summer, it's like 35-40 degrees Celsius, which is probably close to 90th or 100th Fahrenheit. So it's crazy hot for a runner, and I didn't know what to do. I tried running in the evenings, but it was still really hot and humid. And once I realized that it's much better at 6 o'clock in the morning than at even 9 p.m. when it's completely dark. This was a proper reason for me to wake up before 6 a.m. in the morning. If I want to run, not in crazy heat, but at least in moderate heat and be more comfortable during my runs, I need to wake up before 6 o'clock each morning. So I taught myself to wake up earlier for the next summer. What helped me was a running community who run at 6:30 in the mornings. At first I said, no, are you guys crazy? I met them when I was still running in the evenings. But then I realized that for the Turkish climate, their schedule is right. And they were my motivation to wake up in the morning, because I knew that I promised those guys to be there and I need to be there. And then it was just a promise to myself to do those morning runs. It took me approximately a year to rebuild that routine. It was not those 15 minutes per week or something that's advised a lot on the internet. I just tried and failed. And when the next summer came, I already had some background of early running, and it was easier for me to stay on track. The third system, which I've built when I relocated from Turkey to Montenegro, is when I mentioned that I would like to go out on a sailboat in Montenegro. It just so happened that a friend of a friend ended up being a semi-professional sailor, helmsman, who just asked me if I was interested in joining his trainings. And I said, I don't know much about your sport, but I'm curious. So if you tell me what to do, I am gonna try my best and do it. So let's give it a try. So this is how I ended up in the local sailing community. Started participating in regattas, how I took sailing license course, and this is how I even started helming on my own. Sailing is such an interesting system because it's really a complicated sport. It's more technical than it is physical. As I've mentioned, it's really social. We sail on sports boats called J70s, which are designed for 4 people. It's a really complicated system in terms of logic of the movement, the mechanics, the engineering system of the boat, the flow of the wind and the water, a little bit of physics, a little bit of meteorology. It takes a different kind of thinking. But besides that, sailing is something that tests your courage. You go there into the sea. There could be some natural surprises like wind gusts blowing unexpectedly, or the wind changing direction, or some waves coming from the sea. Sailing is fast and dynamic, and you have to take your decisions fast. And being not a fast person on my reflexes, it teaches me a lot. And the way I approach it is I build this system gradually in my head, like a box of my own sailing knowledge, which becomes bigger and bigger. And then I push myself slightly out of that comfort zone to try new things or to go in a little bit worse conditions. And this is how I actually started helming, because I just realized I have some pieces of that system inside me. This box still has gaps in it, but it's like a box. It's like a solid structure. And I am gradually patching those gaps, those holes. And what it takes to patch them is knowledge, logic, and always quite a bit of courage. So I'm really practicing courage there in that system, and talking to people a lot. My sailing circle is mostly my social circle in general here in Montenegro. So it worked as a community for me in big sense. The other little system which I have incorporated to support my other sports is strength training. And it's really a supportive system. It's not giving a lot by its own. It's just making me stronger to pull the ropes in sailing, to maintain my high pace and cadence in running. It's about having the physical power that transforms into relationship and social power. So strength training is highly recommended if you do some other sports and just to feel strong. System number 5 is databases. Is keeping track of the knowledge, the specific blocks of information, blocks of research that I'm doing for both work and life. I mostly use Notion for my media projects, for my client work, and also for some of my personal reflection. I also like physical writing, like written notes. This is the plan for today's YouTube, for example. Writing down the plan of the day, because it's only for the day and it's beside my laptop and I look at it from time to time like, oh, here's what I need to be doing. I also prefer to write down my goals, dreams and thoughts in the physical notebooks. Why my notebooks are usually an unstructured space as opposed to my Notion, which is mostly structured by project, by article I'm writing, by topic I'm collecting information for, by newsletter I'm doing. So yeah, Notion helps a lot to keep track of different topics and ideas that I later develop. Regroup, for example, from YouTube to an article, from an article to a client project or whatever. You are probably wondering if I use a lot of AI. I use some, and I have several chats on ChatGPT that are related to different topics. I will probably make another video on my GPT usage and GPT prompts one day. But anyways, it's mostly Notion that I take final information to. The next system I even crossed out from the list, but I will tell you the next system I even crossed out from the list at first because it's still a work in progress, but I'm going to tell you about it. And it's hypothesis testing. I've been keeping track of hypotheses for the startups I built, but right now I decided to keep track of the same for my personal projects. For example, if I'm testing out some outreach on Twitter, some outreach on LinkedIn, certain types of posts on LinkedIn, certain activities on YouTube, and I expect some results from it, I write down, here is what I'm gonna test, here is how long it should take me, here is what kind of results it's gonna bring, and here is the end result, like how it ended up being. This is a really useful instrument because it helps you realize your expectations and sometimes sort out your priorities if you see that you expect too much of an action, or maybe the opposite, you are doing a time-consuming task but you do not really expect much immediate result from it. So hypothesis testing is a good system, highly recommended for startups, but also for any activity that you are taking. Maybe even for stuff like sailing and sports. Number 7 is personal strategy, personal strategic notes. I have been doing these strategy sessions with myself every now and then, approximately once in every 5-6 months. I'm gonna show you screenshots from my previous strategy where I jotted down 3 key goals and the assets that I'm building for this. And it's a really useful tool. So here is the example of my strategy that I called media strategy, but it's mostly personal brand strategy and anything related to it. So it's quite a big part of what I do. And what it consisted of is 3 key goals I'm gonna achieve, the resources I'm gonna dedicate to it, and also the artifacts I'm producing. And the reason it works so well, the strategy plus artifacts, is because you are understanding how your end results are built, but also you can use the links to those artifacts when you are sharing your progress with somebody else. For example, you need to write an article about yourself or you are going to an interview, and you can provide like a media kit, your bio, your accomplishment, a collection of your articles, maybe your cases, maybe your portfolio, your profiles on different social medias, your website. This is what artifacts are. So strategy plus artifacts. A very cool combo. The system number 8 is not really a system, more a philosophy. And I'm gonna share a learning from Bain partner Jeffrey Winston, an amazing piece of advice he shared when I was leaving Bain, and wrote him a goodbye note, an email saying that Jeffrey, I'm leaving and here is my background, here are my plans, what would you advise? And I really expected from him a type of career advice, like pay attention to this industry, go to this specific type of company. Maybe he would even refer me to someone or to some job opportunity. This is what I expected. But the knowledge of a top manager is usually quite a bit higher. Priceless career advice from Bain&Company partner. For maximum career success, you need to choose 3 things: partner, location, and work for nice people. And this is the system I practice. I try to work for nice people, and this means saying no to people who seem off. If I sense a slightest hint of disrespect or arrogance or toxic culture or being unappreciative to other people's needs and goals, unfortunately, it's a no for me. So such an interesting system. Think about it and write to me if you share this type of system as well. Number 9 is great communities. I try to surround myself with great people, great colleagues, great communities in sports, great role models who sometimes are far away from me. There is this one important type of person I always try to contact with, and this is the role model, the future me kind of person. And if I find that person, I try to connect with them. I try to follow what they are doing. I try to ask them for advice, and sometimes surprisingly they say something valuable and it ends up with so much inspiration. If you don't know who you're gonna be when you grow up, look for role models. LinkedIn is a great set aside some minutes to think about who your role models are and maybe try to contact them. It's always a nice practice to write a DM and email to your role model, and it's a huge source of inspiration when they reply back. So try it. And the 10th and final system is my system for detox. When I feel like there's too much on my mind, I usually do 2 things. I practice digital detox for 24 hours. So I turn off my phone, I put away all things with content, so no books, no movies, not even reading my old journals. So not consuming any kind of content, being free of it for 24 hours. And the second thing I usually do in those 24 hours is going for a big walk. And since I live near the mountains, I love to go up a mountain to think about bigger perspective. This system really helped me take decisions. This system really helped me make big time decisions, including the final decision to divorce my husband, including decisions to move to a new country. So what has walking up a mountain got to do with making decisions? It works this way. First, you go up a hill, which is really hard. So you work physically, you become exhausted, you endure some physical discomfort. Then you are up on a mountain, up high, looking from a perspective onto a bigger world. And did you know that looking at the horizon line is activating the similar zones in our brain as strategic thinking? So if you need a strategic perspective, go somewhere where you can watch the line of the horizon. And the ideal place is, of course, in the mountains, by the sea, or where you have both when you look from a mountain onto the sea. And that's why I love Montenegro, because there are a lot of those places here. So you go boost your strategic thinking, you have some new perspective, and then you go physically from a place up high back to your life. And you bring that new perspective and new solution to your life. And surprisingly, it happened quite several times already, that when I come back from a mountain, I come with a solution, sometimes to a very difficult problem. For me, it works. Today, I've shared 10 things that build my life systems, that help me go on with my life, be efficient, productive, and energetic. Please write in comments which one was the most surprising, the most valuable, the most interesting and unusual for you, and also share what works for yourself. I'm really interested if this personal issue of Discover with Jane was useful for you, so share any kind of feedback. Thank you very much for staying in this video until the end. Subscribe to the channel if you're not, and see you next week.